Top of the morning to you folks. Welcome back to Boondockery. Today is St. Patrick's Day. I'm in the woods, so that means I'm going to be doing a little Irish camp cooking. The catchphrase on St. Patrick's Day is, on St. Patrick's Day, everyone is Irish. I personally am a multi-generation Appalachian, which definitely means I have Irish ancestry. I love Irish food. I've been blessed with the ability to visit there and be able to eat Irish food made by the Irish. And it's a comfort food for me. So I usually wind up eating Irish food frequently throughout the year. But on St. Patrick's Day, I always try to do something a little special. Well, I'm solo camping this weekend, so I'm going to make one of my favorite Irish comfort foods, which is Dublin Coddle. During the mass migration in the early 19th century, thousands upon thousands of Irish came to North America. And when they arrived, they pretty much had everything that they knew with them. However, when it came to cooking, oftentimes they had to alter their recipes depending upon their surroundings. Case in point, when Irish came to New York City, oftentimes they were delegated to find housing in the ethnic ghettos. And when you are living amongst a Jewish population, it's pretty much going to be impossible for you to find pork. So they adopted one of their favorite recipes, which is corned beef and bacon, and utilized what was readily available, like corned beef. Just like any recipe, over a period of time, it changes. And oftentimes those recipes change simply because of the products that are available to you as far as your ingredients goes. I'm certain that my Dublin Coddle is no exception. So if my recipe differs from yours slightly, that's okay. There's more than one way to prepare your Dublin Coddle, and this one's mine. These are the ingredients that I'm going to be using for my Dublin Coddle. It is a meat and pork lovers feast. I'm going to have bacon, smoked ham, and sausage. I'm also going to have a couple potatoes, a couple parsnips because I like parsnips, and half an onion. I'm going to be simmering everything in the chicken broth to make the stew / soup type base, and salt and pepper. One thing I found when I was in the UK is that sausages are not like they are here in the United States. The United States, if I buy sausage, it's 100% meat. And in the UK I saw, as a matter of fact, I did not have a single sausage in the UK that was not prepared with some type of filler like cracker meal or something like that. So the flavor of my coddle is going to vary quite a bit from a traditional Dublin Coddle, simply because it's going to be 100% meat as far as the sausage goes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to boil my sausages, and once they're boiled I'm going to take them off and let them cool so I can cut them into smaller pieces. Chunks have you. And while that's boiling, I'm going to be dicing up my onions, my potatoes, and my parsnips. I washed all my vegetables before I left the house, and we'll go ahead and start off with the potatoes. Use my trusty Opinel that my dear friend John Walsh gave me years ago. Put this off to the side. And this is going to be a very hearty, chunky stew. So all the chunks are going to be fairly large. This is what do you call it? An all-day farmer's meal. Definitely something that will fill you up at the end of a good long day's work. This is probably one of the easiest meals that you can prepare. Very minimal preparations. And most people do not use parsnips, I know that. There's a UK dish that I loved. It's called nips and taties. It's turnips, parsnips, potatoes, just root vegetables. Now, some people do not take the skin off of the parsnips. I take a little bit off, as you can see. I personally feel that it's a little bitter, and I just think it tastes better without some of it. I'm not completely removing all of it, but I'm removing enough to remove some of that bitterness. That one too. Oh, that smells so good. I am assuming by looking at these they are in the same family as carrots. So if you ever want to try parsnips, just prepare parsnips in something you would normally cook carrots in, and I think you will probably like them. Put this in the trash. One thing that I always do is, since they are everywhere, you get them everywhere, is I always save all of my plastic bags, my plastic shopping bags, and I always bring some to the woods with me. They can be used for all kinds of things. I've used them for rain protection for my camera gear, and always hauling out trash, dirty clothes, you name it. They're handy. You can tie them up, stuff them in your pack, and you're good to go. Now, this parsnip doesn't seem to be quite as tough cored as others I've had. This little area right here, I've had parsnips in the past where that was actually separated, and it's quite woody. It's very, very tough, and this is not so much. I was afraid I was going to have to remove some of that because it takes forever to soften up, and it doesn't particularly taste very well. It never does completely soften up. So we've got, let's do these two. Now the thing is, if you ever plan on doing anything like nips and taties where you're using turnips, always cook your potatoes and parsnips, put them in there to boil first by a good several minutes, because turnips cook really quick. And everything in Dublin Coddle is chunky. You want everything in decent sized chunks. Instead of dicing up my onion into small bits, I'm just going to chunk it up, which saves time. clean up at a minimum anything that I put my onions in is going to smell like onions. And I am definitely going to have to wash it. So what I did, and what I do, is I saved my sausage plastic bag. And I'm going to put that down in this cup, make it easier for me to put my onions in it so it's stable. And I'm just going to put those chunks of onions. That's a little green stalk, they don't want that. And I will also be sauteing my onions, so I want to keep those separate from the parsnips and the taties. And there we have it. My little cup is now not going to smell like onions, and everything is prepped. I'm going to check my sausages. And the next step after that is to fry my bacon. Alright, the sausages are boiled. And remove those so they can cool. Pour this liquid out so I can put my broth in. Now, that has been emptied out. I'm going to put my broth in there. Now the next step is I'm going to fry my bacon and saute my onions. But I'm going to need to wait a few minutes. I just had to put some more firewood in the wood stove, so I need to let that die down to coals so I don't have scorched bacon. I'm going to go ahead and start this bacon, and always let your stainless steel heat up just a little bit before you put any of your grease or anything else in there, because if you don't, it will scorch. The way I like to check to see if my stainless steel is heated up, a little water, and you hear that? That means it's ready. Go ahead and put a little ghee in there first, because store-bought bacon will stick if you don't. Normally, I use jowl bacon, or more preferably something called cottage ham. Now, jowl bacon is smoked, and cottage ham is smoked exactly the same way. The big difference in the cottage ham and the jowl bacon is the cottage ham comes from the shoulder, and it is much more meaty, has a lot less fat, all the flavor. But unfortunately, since I live in bug tussle in the middle of nowhere, my ingredient selection is quite poor, and it could not get either of those, so I had to use some double smoked bacon. It's good bacon, but it's not what I normally would like to use for this recipe. Let that come to temperature. I like using ghee because ghee has a very high smoke point, especially cooking in my tent. It's shelf stable like you wouldn't believe. And if you have lactose intolerance and can't eat dairy, chances are you could use ghee, because all of the milk proteins, the dairy proteins, have been removed, and it's just like super clarified butter. Now, as I have found, even though I'm doing all the preparation I possibly can for my bacon so it doesn't stick, because it's store-bought bacon, it has sugar in it. And sugar will scorch, it will stick to some degree. Just got to keep it moving around. And I am going to continue to do that. And I'll bring you back when I'm finished with frying my bacon. Now, as I'm finishing up my bacon, I have one more slice I need to fry. I'm also going to be heating up a little treat my wonderful wife made for me to bring out, and that is Scotch eggs. But you think you've had Scotch eggs? Huh. Have you ever had Scotch eggs made with quail eggs? That's what my wife made me to bring out. Now, if you've ever seen Scotch eggs, they're about the size, bigger than a baseball. These are almost bite-sized. I'm just going to have a couple of those as an extra added little treat to eat while my Dublin Coddle simmers and turns into magnificent goodness. One more slice of bacon here. And by the time that bacon's done, my Scotch eggs will be nice and hot. Alrighty, here we go. A slice of bacon, my Scotch eggs. Now, for those of you that do not know what a Scotch egg is, a Scotch egg is a hard-boiled egg completely encased in sausage and dipped and rolled in scrambled eggs, and then rolled in breadcrumbs, and then deep fried. Look, it looks like a face. Oh, this looks so good. Now, seeing that I live in an area to where I can't get leeks, I can't get a whole bunch of ingredients that I would like to use in my meals when I go camping, I can still get quail eggs. That's fantastic. Happy St. Patrick's Day to me. Thank you, my wonderful wife. I love you. These are fantastic. Now, to quickly saute my onions. These are definitely going to stick. There's sugar in there. I just want to saute them to the point to where they're translucent. So I'll be stirring these non-stop until they are. Now my onions are ready. I'm going to strain off as much of the grease as I possibly can. Go ahead and get my billy pot ready. Put her up here. Put the handle up so I don't get burned when I lift it up again. I'm going to go ahead and put my tubers, my root veg in. Go ahead and let that come up to a good simmer, if not a boil, and then I will be adding the rest of the ingredients. Well, that's coming up to temperature. I'm going to go ahead and dice up my sausage and my ham. And this is supposed to be a chunky dish. So, remember the first time I had this, all the flavor that was in the potatoes and the softness of all the meat, and I'd never had cooked or boiled bacon before, and it was such a new experience to me, and none of the ingredients was prepared in the way that I was used to, and I really fell in love with it. And since it is so easy to make, and you can make a lot of it, pretty much the rule of thumb is a quarter pound of everything per person for 2 servings, as far as the meats and stuff goes. You know, one potato, 1 sausage, about half the ham I put in there, about the equivalent of like 5 slices of bacon, a quarter of an onion, then 1 parsnip, and that right there is a serving, and a hearty serving at that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and add all this in there when that comes to the boil, including the bacon, and then it's a matter of letting it steep for about half an hour, 40 minutes, and then it will be ready to serve. Well, it sounds as if it's come to a boil. A little bit of a boil, and I'm going to call that good enough. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my other ingredients. Put my meat in there. And my bacon. This is going to blow some of you away. Whole slices of fried bacon. You might be thinking, well, why do you fry it? Well, it cooks a lot of the fat out of it, that's why. Now, you also might be wondering, what in the world is up with my billy can? You know, looks like some type of steampunk billy can. Well, all of the things that are attached to my billy can right now are from my video where I turned a billy can into a bake oven for the top of my wood stove, and it worked really well. And the only bad thing about that when you're doing something like this is you have your choice of baking, or you cook on top of the stove, because there's not enough room on the stove to be able to facilitate both. So you might want to check that out if you are interested. I'm going to go ahead and pull this to the front of the wood stove. Bulk of the heat will come back through here, so that's why I had this back there to come to the boil. I'm going to come back and stir it occasionally, and in about 35 to 40 minutes it will be coddle. Well, it's coddle. Okay. Hopefully I get a ladle with a little bit of everything. And a little bit of broth. Lunch is served. Now, as wonderful as this meal may appear, it is lacking 2 quintessential items, one of which is Irish soda bread. And just never got around to making a loaf before I came out, and since I was making the coddle, I have a choice of either baking or doing the coddle, or making it an all-day event. And so I opted for another very, very, very good option, which is my wife's sourdough bread. And we had a little bit of a loaf left over, so I just cut it up and brought it out. The other thing is my beverage. The perfect beverage to have with Dublin Coddle is a Guinness. And again, I live in the middle of nowhere, and there's no Guinness at our local grocery store, so I opted for hot coffee, which isn't nearly as dark as Guinness, but it should still hit the spot. Now, let's go ahead and try this. And first thing I'm going to do is try a little bit of parsnip. It's hard to explain parsnips to someone that's never eaten them. There's sort of a carrot type of flavor to it. There's a little bit of like a sweet potato flavor to it. It's just completely unique and works really, really well with this. Okay, some regular potato. Excellent. Yep, some ham. Very, very tender. Little piece of sausage here. Again, in the coddle, it makes the casing of the sausage super, super tender. If you've ever cooked bratwurst in sauerkraut and let it steep, the whole day, it basically just melts in your mouth. This is real similar. And a piece of bacon. Oh, this is fantastic. Let's try a little bit of that broth. Try it soaked in some soda bread first. It's not soda bread, it's sourdough bread. Excellent. And just a little spoonful. Oh, that's good. I could make a meal out of just the broth alone. It's so rich. Well, folks, I'm going to enjoy my lunch. Oh, Lordy! That was something other good. Oh, and way too filling. 2 big bowls of that. Oh, I need a nap. That's what I need, is a nap. Well, even though this is just coffee and not a Guinness, sláinte. Hopefully enjoyed the video. Hopefully introduce you to another pot of something you can put on at camp and be able to eat on the entire day. And something a little bit different than what some of you may have had. Well, folks, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.